Once upon a time, I was a little girl. A little girl, I thought. But when you're a pretty girl, unfortunately, there are people that take advantage of that, especially when you're raised by a single mother, and she may have a number of friends. And so what happened to me was my innocence was stolen. I was a little girl back then. And it wasn't a pretty situation. This is not a sob story, but it's a story of transition and how God reached down and helped me and found me and turned my life into something useful. But I was innocent then, and someone took advantage of me, and I won't name any names today. I won't mention any details today, but it changed the course of my life. And some people say, well, when did you realize that you were different, that you were no longer a girl? I realized I was no longer a girl when I was about 12 years old, and my life had really changed so much, because I'm not going to say that I was a victim, but I was wearing the scar, and I hid myself in shame because of what was happening to me behind the scenes. Stepfathers, neighbors, others thought I had a job, and someone took advantage of me on that job. But this is not that kind of story. This is the story of victory and accomplishment and what happened along the way, and what happens to so many of us who are out there and who happen to be pretty. Not trying to say when you're pretty, things happen, but sometimes even people that are not up to any good see you as that little girl, and subsequently changes the course of one's life. But I knew I was different when I realized that God was speaking to me in all of this. I realized that I still had a chance to know God. But I wondered how. Because by then, I had become, how can I say it, feeling isolated, alone, and shut down, really. Oh, I wore the mask. Yeah, I was a girl on the outside, but on the inside, I was something different. But God pulled me towards Him at one point in my life. I remember I was watching television, and I saw, it could have been Billy Graham or Catherine Coleman, or whoever it may have been. I don't know who it was, but they were doing faith healings on television, and somehow it just mesmerized me, and it pulled my heart, and I felt as though something was happening, something was pulling me. I wanted to have that. I wanted to, not that I wanted to be healed, because I didn't even know what it was, but I knew that it was something, and it just attracted me. And then even at school, I found myself in my studies, I was attracted to people like Harriet Tubman, the abolitionist, who rescued so many people from the South and slavery and so many years ago. And I felt myself identifying with her and almost even channeling her back when I was a girl. I thought that perhaps one day that I would be able to help someone, a group of people. God showed me this. As He began to talk to me in my life, He showed me that I would help others to do something major. He showed me, like He showed Joseph in the Bible, and his brothers became jealous when they realized that he said, one day I'll be a ruler and I'll lead over you all. And they got jealous and they just kind of threw him in a pit. But I kept these things in my heart, the things that I knew that God would do with me, because He began to speak to me, and I just knew it was Him. I just knew it was Him. And when did you realize? When did I realize? When did I know that God needed me for something? One day I was in the basement of my home. I had gotten through college and done a number of things with my life, but I was just searching for something. At that point, my life had changed. I had started living it in such a way that I called myself being real with myself. I had come out as being a lesbian long when I was a teenager, and I had gotten into a relationship, and the relationship took a turn, so I was alone, back at a point where I was just lost, and I felt like God didn't even love me, and no one loved me. When I was a child, my mother told me that I was lower than the scum on the bottom of the ocean, so I felt isolated. Once I was a girl. but I felt isolated. But this one time, I was in the basement of my home and just kind of wondering what's going to happen with my life. I was an adult by then, and I just felt lost, and I had hit a wall. And many of you may know what hitting a wall must be like because you've done it yourself in your quest. You may not be as challenged as my early years were, but there are times when we get to a point where we hit a wall and we're looking for God and we're wondering, does He love us? Where is He? I was in the basement of my home in that day and just crying out to God. And then there was an old Bible that was on the shelf. The old Bible had been my grandmother's Bible. And it fell down on the floor and the sun was beaming in the window. And the Bible opened up to John 3:16, which says, "For God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son, that whosoever believes on Him shall not perish but have everlasting life." I looked at that. And I saw that word, whosoever. And I said, that could be me. No matter what I'm challenged by, no matter those dusty, dirty memories of a life that I was embarrassed by, a life that I felt like I had to be quiet about and mask myself about, I realized that there was a place for me. And there might be places for you out there also. You might be wondering, what is God going to do with my life? What is my purpose? What's going on? What is this all about? But that Bible fell that day and I saw that word, whosoever. And it was almost like the sun came in and shined in that window, on that Bible, on that verse, and that word, whosoever, it hit me, it pierced me. I knew then that once again it was God talking to me, like He spoke to me early on in my life when He gave me a vision of seeing all these people following me. He was speaking to me. And when God speaks, it's almost like it's not a voice that you can hear all the time, although someone may come to you and confirm to you that and say something that you knew that God told you, and they come along with a confirmation. That happens. But in this instance, I knew in the basement that day when I saw that word, whosoever, that was going to be a turning point in my life. And it meant that I was armed and ready to go out and talk about God in relationship to people that find themselves different. It might be lesbian or gay. It might be some other way of identifying that you just feel like you aren't like everyone else. And none of us are, really. We're all individual and we're all unique. And God has a special purpose for all of our lives. So I'd stumbled upon my purpose. And my purpose was, in terms of looking back and seeing, I can see now that my purpose was, like Harriet Tubman, led all those people from the South to the North to freedom. I discovered, with just finding that word and meditating on it, that word whosoever, I discovered that this was going to be my challenge, would be to go out and help others who maybe were in darkness, in the darkness of thinking that God did not love them just because they were LGBT, lesbian, gay, bi-affectionate, transgender, or questioning. So, you might be different, but God has a plan. And I realized that. I told the Lord, because we have these discussions because I've been talking to Him all my life. I said, Lord, whatever you teach me, I will teach them. Whatever you want me to know, I will share it with them. So Lord, I'm ready to go on this journey. So I took the journey with the Lord and we began to study together. The interesting part about it is, despite the fact that I have all these advanced degrees or whatever, there was not anyone that would help me to understand a ministry for lesbians and gays. I was turned away. I was isolated. There certainly weren't any clergy that were trying to help me put together a ministry that would affirm the life of lesbian and gay people. But, so it was just me and God on this journey. Many times I tried to get other churches to, I would say, validate us by even letting us have space in their facility. But I got so many no's, you would have thought that my name was no. I went to the Catholics. I put down a lot of money so that we could try to have space with them, a safe space to worship with them. They tied up our money for a number of years and nothing happened. I got the money back. I went to the Presbyterians and they said, no, you can't worship in our sanctuary. You can't bring your people into our sanctuary because somehow we believe that, I guess they believed that God would come in and smote them if they just let us use their sanctuary. And then I found another denomination, I think it was the United Methodists, and they said, you just certainly can't go and marry people in our sanctuary. You can rent from us, and they let us rent from them. And we were able to start a church and began and be on our way. But we couldn't go into the sanctuary. There's so many things that were humiliating. We were isolated and humiliated, but we just wanted to get to God. I wanted to get the people to God, just like Harriet Tubman wanted to get the people to the north so that they can have freedom, so that they could be free. This is all that I wanted to do, is to help people that were killing themselves, people that had been disenfranchised, people that had been the first fired, the people that had been evicted from their homes because of who they love, the people that are thrown out of restaurants because of who they love. They're perceived to being gay or lesbian, transgender. I don't know if you know it or not, but so many of our transgender brothers and sisters are being killed because of who they are. There are a number of gay people that have been mistreated through the years. I know you've heard of it, and even in the churches. So this is why the challenge of leaving just being a girl and becoming what God meant for me to be, to take on the promise, the purpose, the reason behind living. I saw that it was more important than just even validating myself. There were people dying by the wayside. There were people dying of AIDS. There were people dying alone. There were people that weren't even allowed to be buried in certain cemeteries or go to any funeral homes or any hospitals. There was so much that we were up against. It was a critical time for us to be able to find our place and have the freedom that so many people enjoy and take for granted. My only reservation about all of it was, what if I'm wrong? But God came to me and told me through His Word that He that began a good work in me would see it to completion. And so, I believe that. We worked through the challenges. I realized that God was on our side. I remember meeting a young lady. I was speaking at a college, and she said, all I want to do is know God. All I want to know is, why did He create me? All I want to know is, what does God have in store for me? But no one will help me do that. And I said, listen, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to continue. I'm going to be there for those that are lost and have been told that there's nothing for them. Oh, it's been a road that has been less traveled, but it was worth it. Let me say to you out there right now, it doesn't matter what your pain might have been. Of course it did hurt, but your pain is often tangled up with your purpose in life. So that horrible thing, those things that might have, those pitfalls, those fiery darts, just put them in a bag and realize, once I untangle these, they will become my purpose. This is what happened for me. And what I can say to you today also is stick with it. When God tells you something, when God sets you on a course for your life, when you develop something that has meaning and tells your purpose and shares what it is that God has for you and why He has created you in the first place, you stick with it. Don't change horses in the middle of the stream. Stick with it, because in the end, you will discover who you are and your purpose in life, and you will understand that God does love you, and then you'll begin to know that you love Him, and though you're not a girl anymore, you are who God says you are. The most important challenge that I remember is convincing people that God does love them. See, no matter where you are, no matter what's happening in your life, God loves you. And what the trick of the enemy, and I call the enemy anyone trying to tell you, trying to tell me that God doesn't care, because he does. And that anyone that tries to tell you that God is not active and alert, God is always talking to us. The way you know it is this. If in your mind, if you're hearing all these negative things, that is not God. If you're hearing the put down, if you're hearing how can I say, something that just doesn't rest well with you, the condemnation, that is not God. That is not God. Now, if you hear another voice that says, I'm always messing up, I'm always tripping up, that's not God. That could be you. But when it's something that's encouraging you, saying, yes, you can go on, you can be that, you can go places, I'm with you, I'll never leave you or forsake you, that's God. It says, come on, you can do it. Weeping may endure for the night, but joy will come in the morning. Those kind of sweet surrenders, that's God talking to you. And sometimes God will talk to you through other people. So this is why we've developed this ministry, so that we can talk to people and renew their faith, renew themselves, and to understand what God's plan for their life is. It's a terrible thing not knowing how you fit in, but God has a way of drawing us to himself and giving us a place that's in a bigger picture. So I say to you today, let's stop thinking of ourselves so much like I was doing. I said I was a little girl. See, that was me focusing on myself. But now the picture is much bigger. That's my past. Right now I'm so much more, and so are you. You're so much more. You're more than just a girl. So once upon a time, there was you. God gave you a vision. God confirmed it. There were challenges along the way. There was isolation. There were people that didn't want to include you. And some people that just wanted to just send you right to hell. For whatever reasons, no matter what your difference might be. You just remember today that if your mother and father forsake you, God loves you. There is a place for you. You keep pushing forward. Don't give up. Know that God is on your side. You have angels that are right along with you. That's who helped me. And the Holy Spirit, that's who helped me. That's how I made it through. He'll do the same for you. That's how all the others are doing. They don't tell us all these details. They don't tell you about the ups and the downs, the hurts and the pain. But I'll tell you, if you stick with it, the course that God has set you on. And sometimes if you wonder, just look back at your life and you can see times where God pulled you out or pulled you in. It's worth it to take a peek and find out what God has in store for you. It may be a roller coaster ride, but you're not alone. I want to encourage you today that God has so much for you, and it's an exciting ride. I would not have missed it for the world. Yes, I was a little girl, but I'm so much more now. Thank you. And so will you be.